So liberal judges have blocked DOGE from doing the job it's meant to do, and not because they're doing anything wrong, but it's because they're all liberal and they're all a part of the deep state, and they don't want Trump investigating the deep state, right? They don't want him auditing anybody and going and looking at the books. Well, Trump says that he's going to audit the Pentagon, that DOGE is going to audit the Pentagon. Now, by the way, I don't think the Pentagon's allowed the government to audit the Pentagon. Okay. I don't even think they've passed an audit. So here's what President Trump has to say.
What we're doing, if you look at what has just taken place with respect to some of the investments that have been made on another agency that people have been talking about for years, but nobody did anything about it. It's absolutely obscene, dangerous, bad, very costly. I mean, virtually every investment made is a con job. There's nothing of value to anybody unless there's a kickback scheme going on, which is possible. And we're going to be doing more and more of that. We're going to be looking at Department of Education. We're going to be looking at even our military. We're going to be looking at tremendous amounts of money, Peter, being spent on things that bear no relationship to anything and have no value. We're talking about trillions of dollars. It will be, in the end, trillions of dollars being absolutely wasted, and perhaps illegally. I would say certainly in many cases illegally, but perhaps illegally overall. And I'm very proud of the job that this group of young people, generally young people, but very smart people, they're doing. They're doing it at my insistence. It would be a lot easier not to do it, but we have to take some of these things apart to find the corruption. We found tremendous corruption.
So just based on that, I don't know how you can be against this. And the only reasons you'd be against this are a few reasons. One, you would be against it because you don't want an audit. You don't want to, allow the public to see what their tax dollars are being spent on. And number two, you've been propagandized, so deeply propagandized by the media that's bought by the U.S. arms industry, among the others like Big Pharma and others. But you've been heavily propagandized, or you have a MSNBC contract, right? So that's another reason. And of course, you have a hate motto for Elon Musk, just because it's Elon Musk. You have no problem with George Soros. You have no problem with Reid Hoffman. You have no problem with George Clooney, the billionaire or whatever he is. But you have a problem with Elon Musk. So you're using excuses because you don't want an audit of the Pentagon. Now, when Trump is doing something right, we're going to come on here and say it. And when Trump is wrong, we're going to come on here and say it. His B-1 visa program, he was wrong about that. He's wrong about the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. He's wrong about arresting students just protesting on behalf of the people of Palestine. He's wrong on creating a $2 trillion hole in the deficit for his rich friends to get a bunch of tax cuts they didn't need. I mean, there's a lot of things cutting lunch programs, free lunch for 500,000 school children. There's a lot of things that he's done wrong, and we will call him out for it. Elon Musk, when he was talking about cutting Social Security with Vivek Ramaswamy, and then everyone called him out, and then he walked it back. We will call them out when it's time. Now, if we're going to talk about Elon Musk doing this, and he's the guy that's in charge of DOGE for some odd reason, because he's a billionaire and he donated to Trump and he bankrolled his campaign. We all know that. There's a conflict of interest there, which is the fact that Elon Musk is a giant defense contractor. Okay, he provides a lot of benefit to the government, not to us, but to the government. And so, he earns money from the government with SpaceX. So there you go. But if they're going to audit the Pentagon and we get to see what they're spending money on and how much corruption is going on in the Pentagon, I think that's the most important thing to us American people, is that we get to see what they're spending money on, why they're spending money on it, and, well, it's corruption, but you get the point, the reasoning, and how much money they're spending on this, right? And it's funny that the Pentagon has never passed an audit. They can't pass an audit, but you can pass a national budget, and they'll say, "Oh my God, national security, oh my God." But they can pass a national budget without auditing the Pentagon, and the Pentagon just gets all this money and it goes to waste. Like Donald Rumsfeld said a day before 9/11, a day before, he said, "There's so much waste in the Pentagon. We got to get rid of the waste. We got to get rid of the waste." And what happened? 9/11 happened, and shut up about it. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Corruption. That's what it is. And by the way, under Trump, they increased the military budget $132 billion a year in perpetuity throughout his entire first term. $132 billion. I just want people to understand that. That's like $518 billion or more going to the Pentagon. So they increased the funding by $132 billion. So like over $500 billion added to the Pentagon budget. So imagine if they had actually spent $132 billion on us. Imagine if they ended homelessness. They took $132 billion. It cost $20 billion to end homelessness in the country. And they said, hey, we're going to build a bunch of new sports arenas and bank buildings and apartment complexes and businesses. Imagine all the jobs that would create and all the money going into the economy and and you invested in the top 10, the top 20 cities in the country, how badass those cities would be, how fucking ass kicking they would be. And imagine if they decided that they would end homelessness and they would build little tiny homes for the homeless and then put them to work and do job training programs. Imagine if they, like in Clark County where I live, they, instead of paying 7 administrators for 1 teacher, we increased teacher salaries to $100,000, and then we actually had like 2 or 3 teachers for 1 classroom. Because what happens is all the teachers are overflowed. They're overloaded. They got 180 to 300 students a day. And that's why the kids cannot get the attention that they need. $132 billion to pay teachers and put extra teachers in the classroom and divvy up the work for the teachers so they're not taking work home as much and they're not having to work 2 jobs aside from their jobs, so working 3 jobs just to afford the rent. Because they can't even afford to save for the retirement account that they get from the school districts, like a 403B plan. Imagine if $132 billion went to that, went to our education system, and we actually taught our kids instead of the psychological warfare that they're teaching. Imagine if we could do that with $132 billion that went to the Pentagon. Imagine if we could do that. They are investing out of our country, investing in foreign terrorist organizations, and then crying about national security when they're the ones putting our national security at risk. And they're allowing the Chinese to hack our systems. They're allowing the Koreans to hack our systems. They're allowing everybody to hack our systems because they don't invest in our national security. They fund al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and other horrible groups around the world. And they fund Israel, who doesn't even need the money from us. They just pocket the money. And they fund the generals on TV, and they funnel the money to other programs. That's what happens. And imagine if they invested that back here. And so anyway, I just haven't heard an argument against auditing the Pentagon that's actually a good argument. I've never heard it, because there is no argument to say that we shouldn't investigate the corruption and audit the Pentagon and go, where's all this money going? The only argument I've ever heard in the media by the shit libs, by the Democrats, is, well, we don't like Elon Musk doing it. Oh my God. You ever heard the phrase, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? So let's say that you don't like Elon Musk. Well, I don't really like the Pentagon. So if the guy I don't like investigates the other guy I don't like, well, and they're friends because they give him money. But if he can just bring out the corruption and say, hey, this is what we're spending on, at least make it a little bit more transparent, great. I am all for it. But no arguments, no valid arguments against auditing the Pentagon. And I think this is a good thing. I think they should audit the Pentagon. And as long as Trump keeps his head in a swivel, I think we should be just fine.